be testing out the new Tamron 70-180 f2.8 constant aperture lens for the Sony E-mount, and this is the G2, so the new version. And I'm gonna let you know my thoughts, my feelings, how this thing handles, because I am at a dog training center. So a lot of moving subjects, and hopefully the focus will track it with this lens. I mean, these dogs are really smart. Seriously, it definitely looks like they know what they're doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. By the way, I'm trying to capture like a silhouette, you know, with a nice blurry background, but so that you can see where the dog is. That would be, you know. And this thing is actually working okay. I'm quite surprised. I think this is the only lens I'll be using today because it's just enough reach to capture everything. Okay, so the dogs are unbelievable. I've never seen so many trained dogs in one place. Actually, I've never seen any trained dogs. These dogs really know what they're doing. Anyway, so back to the Tamron 70-180 G2. This is really an impressive lens. Honestly, the only real issue I have is when I'm trying to photograph and I'm zooming in and zooming out at the same time, because this lens is not parfocal. But if you're not zooming in or out too fast, then it's actually not a problem, because the autofocus on this, so the linear autofocus motors, are blazingly fast and completely silent. So I'm really quite satisfied with this. I think I got some cool results, and I'm quite confident on using this in the field, even though it's made from plastic and it's, well, you know, it doesn't feel really robust, but I've bumped it a lot and it still works. I am at an international canine rescue event, so it's like a sport event where you have a bunch of teams. Actually, there's 14 of them competing in 3 different locations, and the dogs are trying to find different things, like people who are actual people hiding, and dogs have to find them in this rubbly terrain, and little markers like other things. So it's really amazing. Now, I'll be moving around a lot between these 3 locations. I actually have my own chauffeur. How you doing?
How am I doing? Driving, doing.
So the first polygon actually looks like this, a whole bunch of rubble. I mean, this is pretty much simulating like an earthquake or something really bad happening. So if you have you know, buildings falling over and similar stuff, you get a scene that looks, you know, like this. And these dogs need to find those markers and people here because they're hidden somewhere, and they have to smell them without first smelling something. So it's like completely on the blind, but these dogs are really well trained. I am, however, not allowed to do this. So if I'm in this position trying to get a low down shot, which honestly are the best shot, you know, the dog's immediately going to run to me because I'm signaling the dog that I'm kind of in danger, or I'm the one he's supposed to find. Really interesting. I mean, really, just crouch down and the dog comes to you. Dear God. Okay, so this is the third and the final location I mean, not down there, oh, here. Yeah, I can hardly imagine searching somebody in rubble like this and still hoping that they're alive. But hey, this is why we have the dogs, you know? They sniff them out, and if they're alive, well, this is how you save them, with dogs, in places like this. Now, in case you were waiting for the dog to run off with this lens, yeah, that was clickbait. I'm sorry, but I hope you've enjoyed the first part of the video. I definitely enjoyed making it, so make sure to hit the like button for that. Thanks a lot, and also consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. So now let's get into a more technical side of this lens review. So as I said in the beginning, this is the G2 version of this Tamron 70-180 f2.8, and that G2 comes with a special feature, and that is vibration control. That's that VC in the title that stands for vibration control, or Tamron's optical stabilization. Now this syncs really well with Sony's in-body image stabilization, and I was able to take photographs of 1/5 of a second shutter speed at 180 millimeters handheld. Now I do have steady hands, but yeah, that's completely possible, and you can really see how things just freeze up when you half press the shutter or when you push the back button if you're back button focusing. And once you take the photograph, you will notice how the frame jumps because this thing was stabilizing it so really well. So definitely worth purchasing the G2 instead of the G1. That's what I would recommend. It's a $1,500 lens. The original one is $1,100 euros here where I live. And those extra few $100 definitely worth it. So I do recommend this. And it's still going to be half the price of the Sony's 70-200 G Master version 2, which is $3,000. Now, why is this thing so much cheaper? Well, first of all, it's made from plastic. It's not going to be as durable as the G Master, but for this reason, it's also much lighter and much smaller. So this is definitely always going to be in my backpack because of this form factor. Actually, you can see it's quite small. Now, when it comes to optical performance, third-party lens manufacturers like Tamron and Sigma, they go through great lengths to make their lenses really extremely sharp, fast autofocusing, and 0 to none chromatic aberration. So optically, I think this lens is right up there with the Sony G Master. I wouldn't say that it's better, but it's definitely not half the price worse. I mean, whenever I see two images side by side, one taken from the Sony, one taken from the Tamron or Sigma, I don't really notice the difference. So optically, you're not losing anything with this lens. Now, I do also have to mention that I bought this lens right when it came out, so on the 12th of October, which means that this video is not sponsored by Tamron, and I was waiting for this to come out for some time. So what about the functions and the feelings when you're using this lens? Now, I do like the fact that the zoom throw is very short. It's about 45 degrees, something like this, you know, going from 70 to 180. And this is really useful when you're photographing, that you can just do this and go all the way from 70 to 180 instead of rotating the ring like crazy. I find this to be very helpful, and the zoom ring is actually quite smooth. It's, you know, just sticky enough, so it's not going to creep on you, but you also have a lock switch over here, which you can then lock the zoom in its 70mm position. Very helpful if you're carrying your camera like this and you're running around the whole day. The focus ring is also quite smooth. It's much smoother than on my other Tamron lenses, so it's actually quite nice. But the irony is that this is not just the focus ring, this is a programmable functional ring. Now, this lens comes with a very special feature, and that is that you can program what the focus ring does and what this programmable button over here does. You also have a switch for 3 positions, and you can save the settings into 3 custom modes. Now, you connect your lens with a USB-C cable directly into your smartphone. You download the Tamron utility app. The 2 devices will immediately connect, well, at least on the Android smartphone. I haven't tried the iPhone. And then you can set the functions for the focus ring and this button. Currently, at custom setting number 1, I have it set to be this, the manual autofocus switch, and once I press this, the camera switches to manual focus, and this becomes a focus ring. At custom setting number 2, when I press this button, the focus ring becomes the aperture ring. So now I have the aperture ring on this lens, which is really amazing, and I think that every lens should have this. I think that Canon has this on some of their RF lenses, and this is really useful because now you don't need a separate ring for the aperture and one for the focus. You just press the button and everything switches. And I think on the third setting I have this button to be programmed with my camera, which is eye tracking. Now this might sound quite complex, but it's really that easy. You just connect the lens to your smartphone in the app, and then you just, a few clicks over there and you're done. This is also why nothing worked when I attached this lens the first time onto my camera. The focus ring wasn't functional and none of the buttons were working. Well, that's because you have to program them right in the beginning, so don't freak out about this. The lens is dust and moisture resistant, even though it has that USB port. It's a weather sealed USB port, just like on your smartphone. So if you throw your smartphone into a pool, the water is not going to go in. Don't throw the lens into water. It's just, and it is an external zoom lens, which means that you can see that it's extending and contracting when you zoom in and zoom out. That's very different to the Sony 70-200 G Master, which is like an internal zoom, therefore making it much more robust. I mean, it is a professional grade lens, but this is also professional. I mean, I just used it for a professional photo shoot, so definitely happy with the results. And to be honest, the 70-200 or 70-180 in this case is really the ideal focal length for covering all sorts of events, weddings, portraits, sport events, birthdays, even landscape photography, woodland photography. This is truly one of the most useful focal length ranges, and the fact that it's 180 and not 200 isn't that big of a deal because 20mm don't play a big role when you're at longer focal lengths. So it is a little bit shorter reach, but it's not that big of a deal. So now let's talk about that one bad thing that I found with this lens, and I've talked about this in the beginning of the video, and that is that the lens is not parfocal, which means that once you've locked onto a subject, once you focused onto a subject, when you zoom in or zoom out afterwards, the lens will lose focus. Now, as long as you're pressing the back button or half pressing the shutter button, the autofocus and the linear motors in here will keep up with the focusing. Now, the subject will stay in focus as long as you're not doing this really fast, which honestly you should not be doing. Now, when it comes to photography, I don't find this to be an issue. Even when the dog was running towards me, I wasn't zooming out at the same time. The problem could only occur if you already have, your frame set and you're the subject in focus, and then at the last minute you just want to tighten up the shot a little bit more before the action starts. Well, then you have to reacquire the focus. So in that situation, you might find it difficult, especially if you zoom in really fast. But for photography, I don't see it as a big issue. Now, where it is a little bigger issue is with video. Now, with video, we typically zoom in and zoom out when we're recording. And as I said in the beginning, as long as you're doing it slowly, the camera's autofocus and the focus motors in the lens will keep up and keep the subject in focus. But if you're zooming in and out faster, well, then things will start to come in and out of focus and it will look kind of strange. So just keep that in mind. That is also the one big difference to the Sony's G Master, which is parfocal. So yeah, I mean, that's the only really bad thing that I found about this lens. Now, is it a deal breaker? Well, for me, no, because I knew when I bought this lens that it's going to be non-parfocal, but for some of you, it could be an issue, so keep that in mind. But it's definitely worth the purchase, so I do recommend this. So anyway, please hit the like button if you like this video. Also consider subscribing if you're new, and if you have any comments or questions about the lens, about the photo shoot, about the dogs, please leave that down in the comment section and let's start a debate there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.